Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Out here, silence should mean peace. But when ex-Marine Evan Randall moves off-grid for freedom, he doesn't expect war, with a ruthless HOA queenpin, a corrupt sheriff, and a web of lies set to burn his world down. This isn't just property, it's a battlefield. There's something sacred about silence, real silence, the kind that only exists miles from the nearest gas station, where the only thing louder than the wind is the creaking of pine limbs in the Nevada foothills. That's what I bought. 30 acres of peace, solitude, and total independence. My name's Evan Randall. I'm 42, ex-Marine Corps, and now a corporate security consultant who finally got tired of spreadsheets and airports and decided to plant my boots on something solid. I spent years looking for the right property, something outside any municipal overreach, especially HOAs. I'd tangled with one before. Long story short, it ended in court and a settlement check with a lot of zeros. Lesson learned. So when I found this plot outside Red Hills Valley, fenced, unincorporated, free of HOA jurisdiction, with mineral and water rights intact, I didn't hesitate. I triple-checked the parcel records at the county office, recorded the deed, and even registered the property under my LLC just to keep things neat. Then I got to work. Solar backup, diesel generator, satellite internet, perimeter fencing, and, of course, cameras. Visible ones, sure, but also the kind you don't notice unless I want you to. That's just protocol for me. The first week was uneventful. I'd wake up early, cut brush, test irrigation lines, drink coffee with the coyotes and jackrabbits. Exactly what I signed up for. Until day 8. That morning, I was out near the eastern fence line running cable for an additional motion sensor when I saw 3 figures standing at my main gate. A woman in a bright red vest flanked by 2 men holding clipboards and clip-on smiles. I walked up slowly, wiping my hands with a rag, mentally flipping through the possible pretexts for this visit. None of them pleasant. The woman stepped forward like she was opening a city council meeting. Mid-50s, surgically precise bob haircut, sunglasses that cost more than my truck, and a voice you could use to sterilize surgical tools. Good morning, I'm Karen Welsh, president of the Red Hills Preserve Homeowners Association. We'd like to welcome you to the community. I didn't shake her hand. I'm not part of your community. She blinked, taken aback for a half second, then smiled tighter. Well, technically, your property borders the preserve, and we consider this entire valley part of our stewardship model. Most homeowners here have opted into our voluntary protection plan. The man on her left chimed in. It includes road maintenance, security patrols, event coordination. Karen interrupted. And standards enforcement, things like fencing aesthetics, noise ordinances, fire safety, and visual harmony. Visual harmony, I repeated flatly. That's cute. Karen didn't laugh. Instead, she produced a folder from her leather tote and handed it to me. This is the membership packet. There's a one-time community onboarding contribution, $22,000, and then a modest monthly fee. In return, you'll enjoy the benefits of being a cooperative neighbor and maintaining property values. I flipped through the packet. Some glossy photos of homes that looked like prison camps with vinyl siding, bylaws printed in Comic Sans, and a page with an actual color wheel titled Approved Shades for Residential Trim. I handed it back. Thanks, but I'll pass. My land isn't subject to HOA jurisdiction. I have the original subdivision maps and a recorded deed to prove it. Karen's smile fractured. Mr. Randall, we're trying to offer you a chance to integrate smoothly into this neighborhood. If you decline, you'll still be expected to maintain minimum standards to avoid conflict. One of the clipboard guys mumbled, "It's easier to work with us than around us." I stared at all 3 for a long moment. This isn't a negotiation. My property was carved from federal patent land in 1978. No annexation, no servitude rights, no HOA overlay. I'm not interested in your suggestions, your guidelines, or your fee structure. So, if you're done with your welcome wagon pitch, I've got a trench to dig. Karen's eyes narrowed to surgical slits. We'll see how long that attitude lasts. Red Hills values cooperation. They turned and left, one of the men muttering something about just wait. I watched them drive off in a brand new white Tahoe with the HOA's logo stenciled on the side, 2 red hills, and a smug-looking oak tree. Back in the house, I logged everything. Time, faces, dialogue, even a snapshot of the car from my gate cam. I had a feeling this wasn't over. And when people like Karen say, "We'll see," they usually mean it. But I didn't move out here to be part of anyone's preserve. I came to build my own. It started with dust. Mid-morning, 2 days after Karen's unwelcome visit, I was finishing reinforcement on the south fence when a familiar low rumble crawled over the hills. I stood up, squinting against the sun, and saw a black and white county patrol SUV crawling up my access road in a slow, deliberate zigzag. Not lights on, not sirens, just looming. I wiped my hands, picked up the bolt gun, and walked toward the gate. The SUV stopped just outside the property line. 2 figures stepped out. One was a rookie. I could tell by the way he double-checked his gear, nervous and twitchy under the summer sun. The other, mid-60s, tan uniform tailored to an aging belly, mirrored sunglasses, and a jaw carved out of old sandstone. Sheriff Greg Welsh, of course. I stepped up to my gate but didn't open it. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Greg didn't answer right away. He just pulled out a folded piece of paper from his vest and held it up like a holy relic. "Got a report of unpermitted construction on the premises. We're gonna need to inspect." I didn't move. "You got a warrant," Greg snorted. "This is a routine check. Don't make this difficult, son. I'm not your son, and I don't do routine without paperwork. You're on my private road, outside my fence. That makes this a trespass unless you've got judicial cause." The younger deputy shot Greg a side eye, but the sheriff ignored him. "You building something back there, Randall? Heard you got a few things running. Might be a code violation." "Fire risk. Environmental," I crossed my arms. "Everything I've built is permitted, up to code, and pre-approved by county zoning, who, by the way, never sent anyone. So, either you've got a proper inspection order, or this conversation is over." Greg stepped closer to the gate. His voice dropped to a low gravel. "You think because you've got cameras and a nice little hideout out here, you don't have to follow the rules? Let me be clear, you're not special. You may have fooled the office clerks with some old land deed, but in this valley, we keep order." I noticed his hand resting a little too casually near his belt. Not threatening, exactly, but not relaxed either. "You mean we, as in you and your wife?" I said. "Karen send you out here to finish her HOA pitch with a badge on?" His sunglasses didn't hide the twitch in his jaw. "Watch your mouth. Number you watch your authority. You're a public servant, not a private enforcer. You came here without a warrant, ignored jurisdictional boundaries, and now you're posturing on private land that doesn't fall under your HOA fantasy." The younger deputy looked increasingly uncomfortable, but Greg wasn't done. He stepped forward and smacked his palm against the gate. "This is obstruction. If you don't let us through, I'll bring you in for resisting." I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit the record button mid-sentence. "Say that again for the camera." He hesitated. I added, "Just so we're clear, this is being recorded on 4 devices, the phone, 2 gate cams, and an audio feed from the post behind you. You're currently threatening unlawful arrest on private land while lacking legal cause. That's a civil rights violation, Sheriff." Greg sneered. "You think your gadgets are going to save you?" "No," I said calmly. "But the DA will appreciate the footage. So will the local news, if it comes to that." For a few seconds, the only sound was wind and the metallic hum of insects in the brush. Then, the younger deputy tugged lightly on Greg's sleeve. "Sheriff, we should probably check back with dispatch. Make sure this isn't a jurisdictional mix-up." Greg didn't move, but he did stop talking. "You've been asked to leave," I said flatly. "You're now being formally trespassed from my land. If you come back without legal authority, I'll file. And this time, I won't be the only one." The 2 of them stood there for a long, silent beat. Then Greg turned without a word, climbed into the SUV, and slammed the door so hard the side mirror trembled. The younger deputy gave me a half-apologetic nod before following. They reversed slowly, dust curling behind their tires like smoke. Back inside, I didn't even sit down. I downloaded every angle from my cameras, spliced the cleanest clips, and zipped it with time-stamped metadata. I emailed the archive to my lawyer and CC'd the local district attorney's intake office. I wasn't playing offense yet, but I wanted a clean record on the table. This wasn't a one-time harassment. Greg hadn't come out here to inspect anything. He'd come to send a message. And now I'd sent one right back, with 4 angles, stereo audio, and legal teeth. Later that night, I added a new layer to my security system, cross-triggered infrared beams along the backside trail just in case the next visit came without uniforms. I wasn't scared. I was preparing. It didn't take long for the fuse to reach the powder. 3 days after Greg Welsh's unlawful visit to my gate, my lawyer forwarded me an email from the county DA's office. The tone was clipped and formal, standard bureaucratic fare, but the content was anything but ordinary. They had opened an internal inquiry into alleged misconduct and abuse of authority involving a uniformed officer. That officer was named in full, Sheriff Gregory J. Welsh. They wanted a signed affidavit and chain of custody documentation for the video footage. I had both ready within the hour. By the following Monday, the local news caught wind of it. The headline didn't mention me, but the story was unmistakable. County Sheriff under investigation for alleged overreach during private property confrontation. A blurry still from one of my camera feeds was splashed beneath it, Greg's face, mid-sneer, at my front gate. Someone had leaked it. 2 days after that, the county issued a formal statement. Sheriff Welsh was placed on administrative leave pending review of potential civil rights violations and procedural misconduct. The comment section of every local outlet lit up like a Christmas tree. Half the valley celebrated, the other half howled about a smear campaign. I stayed quiet. I had no interest in gloating, but Karen did. That afternoon, she showed up again, this time alone, walking up the gravel with arms stiff and jaw clenched. I didn't bother opening the gate. I just stood there behind it, watching her pace up to the metal bars like a panther denied meat. "You smug bastard," she hissed, the moment she got within earshot. I didn't answer. "You think this is some kind of game? You think taking down my husband is going to get you what? Some land baron fantasy? You don't belong here, Randall." I kept my voice level. "Your husband trespassed. He threatened me while wearing a badge. Everything I did was legal. You humiliated him," she barked. "You humiliated us. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. That's why there are cameras in my birdhouses." She stared at me, lips twitching, eyes bloodshot. I expected screaming, maybe another threat, but instead, she just stood there and let her rage boil under her skin. "This isn't over," she said finally. "You don't get to just erase us. You erased yourselves." She turned and left. No theatrics, just raw, simmering hate. The next 48 hours unfolded like a procedural drama. County investigators arrived at the sheriff's office with sealed envelopes and stern faces. Internal memos were leaked to local press. A deputy from the Western Precinct made an anonymous statement to reporters. "Welsh has been running his office like a family ranch for years. This isn't the first time it's gotten dirty, just the first time someone had proof." By the end of the week, Greg was stripped of his badge and taken into custody. The charges weren't minor: trespassing under color of authority, obstruction of justice, attempted coercion, and abuse of power. The prosecutor confirmed that the video footage and the time-stamped metadata had been pivotal. My footage. When the cuffs clicked onto Greg's wrists in the courthouse parking lot, the whole town seemed to collectively hold its breath. Karen, notably absent from the media circus, vanished from view. Her HOA newsletter, which used to circulate weekly, suddenly went silent. But her silence wasn't surrender. I could feel it, the kind of quiet that feels like the air pulling back before a storm. I didn't celebrate. I didn't talk to reporters. I didn't post videos online. I just kept working, repaired a downed fence section, changed the code on the west gate, cleaned my firearms, checked my camera batteries, filed the last few pieces of paperwork for the civil protection order against Greg, just to make it official. That night, over a quiet dinner and a whiskey poured slow, I caught a headline rolling across the bottom of a muted news segment. "Former sheriff faces up to 5 years in state prison." Underneath, in fine print, "Incident occurred during dispute with non-HOA landowner." That was me. And that was when I understood. Karen wasn't angry because I defended myself. She was angry because I won. It began with the trash bags. I was walking the perimeter one morning, sipping bitter coffee from a steel thermos, when I spotted a pair of black garbage bags dumped just inside the northern fence line, torn open like they'd been mauled by raccoons or worse. The contents weren't ordinary trash either. Soggy cardboard, broken light fixtures, what looked like the rotting remains of a garden gnome, and a stained envelope with the Red Hills Preserve HOA logo on it. The message wasn't subtle. It also wasn't original. I checked the footage, nothing on the main camera grid, but that wasn't surprising. This was the first probe, meant to test the edges. I took it as such. The next sign came 2 nights later. I just returned from a trip into town, supplies, mail, diesel, when I noticed something smeared across my gate. Red paint, Thick, sloppy, dripping like blood from a butcher's apron. Someone had scrawled the word traitor in shaky, oversized letters. Below it, they'd left a bundle of printed HOA violation notices tied together with twine and a dead rose. I burned them in the fire barrel before nightfall. The sheriff's office, now under an interim acting captain, took the report politely, but unenthusiastically. No suspects, they said. Could be teenagers. Sure. Teenagers with a grudge, access to HOA stationery, and a vendetta specific enough to drop a fake fine for non-standard perimeter vegetation. I installed an extra infrared sensor along the back trail and doubled the angle coverage for cameras 3 and 5. I wasn't worried yet. Not really, I'd seen worse. But it was the kind of escalation that had fingerprints all over it. Passive-aggressive, plausible, deniable, HOA-grade warfare. But the mail changed everything. It arrived on a Friday. I almost missed it, since most of my post gets routed through a private box in town. But every now and then, something lands in the rural roadside mailbox out front. This envelope was unmarked, no return address, no stamp. Just slid into the box like a dead animal in a trap. Inside was a single photo, my house shot from the East Hill at night. The lens had captured everything. My porch light, the silhouette of my dog moving across the front yard, even my shadow through the living room curtain. It was a long lens, high end. Someone had hiked up the ridge behind my property in the dark and watched me through glass. They timed the shot to prove they could do it again. Along with the photo was a single sheet of paper with block letters cut out and glued ransom style. We see everything. You aren't safe out here. I stared at the note for a long time before folding it once and placing it inside a Ziploc bag. Then I walked to my security station, accessed the archive feed, and scanned every motion trigger for the last 72 hours on camera 8 overlooking the East Ridge. And there it was. A figure, small and low-slung, hiking in just before 2 a.m., using the trees for cover. No face, no identifying marks, but the direction was clear. Someone from Red Hills Preserve had crossed my line. I filed another report with the sheriff's office. This time, I brought the envelope, the photo, the footage. They took it seriously, or at least more seriously than before, but they still couldn't give me much. No usable IDs. No fingerprints. No witness. Karen hadn't vanished. She'd just shifted tactics. She wasn't just angry, she was hunting. The next few days were tense. I started sleeping in 2-hour shifts, installed motion-activated floodlights along the ridge. I even pulled the old Remington from the cabinet just in case. My clients used to ask what paranoia looks like when it's justified. This was it. 1 part instinct, 1 part preparation, and 1 part that gnawing gut feeling that you're being studied like prey. The funny part, it didn't scare me. It pissed me off. You want to rattle a man like me? You don't send notes. You don't toss trash. You don't paint words on fences like it's a bad high school prank. If you come for someone like me, you'd better come with more than red paint and HOA bylaws. Because when I respond, I don't bluff. And I don't warn. I first noticed her just past dusk, lingering by the post near my east gate, where the brush thins out into wild rosemary. She looked out of place. Mid-30s, denim jacket, hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail, clutching something in both hands like it might explode. When she caught my eye, she flinched like a deer caught in the beam. "Are you Evan?" she asked, stepping forward but not crossing the gate. I didn't answer at first, just studied her stance, nervous but not rehearsed. No clipboard, no badge, no HOA swagger. "Depends who's asking," I said carefully. "My name's Madison. I live on Cedar Ridge Drive. I used to be, well, I was close with Karen, not anymore." That got my attention. She held up a flash drive, fingers trembling. "I think you need to see this." I buzzed her through the gate and walked her back toward the main house, keeping my pace slow, neutral, no sudden moves. She wasn't an enemy, at least not tonight. I led her to the outer shed where I kept a secure laptop for off-grid data reviews and plugged in the drive. It was video, grainy phone quality. The setting was familiar, Red Hills HOA Community Center. Madison narrated under her breath as we watched. They meet there once a week. No minutes, no records. This was last Thursday. I used to sit in on these when I was still on the committee. On screen, Karen stood at the front of the room, her voice low and clipped. The audio wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. "Randall is a threat to community order," she said, pacing like a prosecutor. "He's a manipulator. He turned Greg into a villain and got him jailed." "We can't let him keep spreading rot through this neighborhood." A man off camera responded, "He's got cameras." "Legal stuff. We can't touch him." Karen's response, "Then we make him touch us." Create an incident. Stage something. Get someone to file a complaint. Use a decoy. If he resists, we record it. We build a narrative. The video cut. I sat in silence. "They're planning to set you up," Madison said quietly. "I'm not okay with it. I used to believe in Karen. Hell, we all did. But she's gone full fanatic." "Why come to me?" "Because I'm done being afraid of her." That night, I uploaded the footage to 3 separate encrypted cloud drives. Sent one copy to my lawyer, another to a journalist I'd done work for in the private sector, and a third to an anonymous watchdog site I knew wouldn't flinch. But the war was already heating up. The very next morning, I received a call from the sheriff's station. A voice, cheerful like a receptionist in a theme park, told me I was being asked to appear for questioning. "You've been named in a physical assault complaint, Mr. Randall," she said, as if reading from a menu. "Filed by a community safety inspector from Red Hills Preserve." I arrived with a full digital folder in hand, including every camera feed from the past 72 hours, timestamps, GPS logs, and a time lapse of me cleaning my water tanks at the precise hour I was supposedly attacking someone. The so-called victim, a man named Brent Darrow, a part-time maintenance guy from Red Hills, who'd never once set foot near my land. Karen had submitted a video, grainy, distorted, conveniently missing a clear face, where someone in a hoodie shoved Brent near a fence. It was laughably fake. But the real kicker? Brent's phone pinged off a tower 15 miles away during the incident. His alibi fell apart under light pressure. The prosecutor reviewed my evidence and dropped the matter within hours. But it was clear now. Karen wasn't just trying to scare me anymore. She was trying to legally erase me. And she nearly succeeded. That night, I sat under the porch light with a fresh whiskey and one of my old military field maps. I marked new threat zones, outlined fallback angles, reassessed sensor placement. They wanted a show? Fine. Let's raise the curtain. I woke to the sound of glass shattering. It was just past 3 a.m. and pitch black outside. No moon, no breeze, just the hum of night animals and something else. Something off. The dogs hadn't barked yet, which was wrong. They always barked when there was a raccoon, a coyote, even a deer. But this time, they were dead silent, which meant the threat wasn't wildlife. It was people. I slid out of bed barefoot, heart thudding not from fear, but from the jolt of trained instinct. I grabbed the small flashlight I kept clipped to the nightstand and reached into the gun cabinet, pulling the Glock out from its resting place. I didn't turn on the lights. I knew my layout. They didn't. As I moved toward the side door, I caught the flicker through the window, a fast pulse of orange light from the west end of the property. Not good. That was the generator shed. I moved faster now, staying low. Before I even opened the door, I heard the second sound, metal scraping against metal, and then a low thump. Then running. Then the dogs finally erupted, going wild in the back. I stepped outside and saw it, flames licking out from the edge of the generator shed. Fast and furious, fueled by the diesel tanks. Someone had doused the wall in accelerant. The fence near it was broken, snapped in two, like someone had rammed through it with a tool or even a crowbar. I saw 2 figures sprinting away into the dark, one of them tripping as they ran, the other turning back for just a second to hurl something heavy toward my garage wall. It missed. The clang rang out like a church bell. I didn't fire, not yet. But I raised the gun and called out with a voice that no longer needed volume to command attention. "You're on camera, and this is private land. You've got 10 seconds before I start shooting." They kept running. Into the tree line. Cowards rarely have staying power. I rushed to the generator shed and grabbed the extinguisher from the emergency wall hook. It took almost 5 minutes to put the flames out, and another 10 to make sure the fire hadn't spread to the underground line running to the solar backup relay. Only then, once the immediate threat was neutralized, did I go back to the house and flip open the security archive. The main camera, disabled, cut right at the cable. But I wasn't stupid. I had installed a second layer of passive IR cameras, each running off self-contained battery packs and SD cards, buried in dummy owl boxes and mounted into trees. The feed wasn't real-time, but it was good enough. When I retrieved the footage and played it back, it felt like watching a heist movie in real time, except it was my land, my shed, and my enemy. 3 men, all in masks, but one of them forgot his gloves. Another one's mask slipped when he lit the fire. I froze the frame, zoomed in, enhanced the contrast. It was Preston Weller, chair of the HOA's disciplinary committee. Bald spot, tattoo on the left hand. Couldn't be mistaken. And the guy who tripped while fleeing? I recognized his voice as he cursed under his breath. Hadn't heard it in years, but it was unmistakable. Randy Coulter, Karen's cousin. He used to manage landscaping around the HOA pool back when I lived downstate. He also used to deal meth on the side. Seemed like old habits die hard. I didn't waste time. By sunup, I had burned multiple copies of the footage. One I uploaded to the cloud. One I handed to my lawyer in person. One I took directly to the sheriff's office. The new interim sheriff was younger, quieter, and had one crucial quality his predecessor lacked: a working brain. He watched the video, made a copy, and said 2 words that told me everything I needed to hear. "We're moving." That afternoon, Weller was arrested on charges of felony arson, trespassing, and destruction of property. Coulter was picked up a few hours later in a traffic stop, and they found tools in his truck that matched the ones seen in the video: bolt cutters, spray paint, a slingshot, and a full tank of diesel in the back. Karen? She went silent for a day or two. Then the lawyers started showing up. If there was one thing I learned in the Corps and never forgot in civilian life, it was that the best counterattack is methodical, patient, and backed by paperwork. The fire was the final straw, not just for me, but for a handful of others in the valley who'd been suffering under Karen's little HOA empire in silence. The day after the arrests, I made phone calls. Not to the sheriff, not to the media, but to every homeowner I could find who had so much as rolled their eyes at Karen's rules. I didn't ask for favors. I offered evidence. By the end of that week, there were 13 of us. 13 separate homeowners with stories: illegal fines, forged notices, threatened evictions, property damage, coerced membership fees, and even a woman named Deirdre who'd been harassed out of her house for painting her shutters blue. Every story different, but one name always came up: Karen Welsh. And in every case, not a single person had ever legally signed HOA membership. She was running an HOA with no binding charter, a paper castle held together with toner and threats. I sat down with my attorney, Susan Hale, a former federal prosecutor turned bulldog litigator with no patience for corrupt suburban dictators, and we drafted the opening shots of a class action lawsuit. We filed in county civil court under Randall Vates. Red Hills Preserve HOA, citing unlawful enforcement of non-existent covenants, extortion, defamation, property damage, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We included over 100 pages of evidence, copies of Karen's forged notices, HOA fee invoices that had no legal basis, footage of her committee meetings, and every second of video from the generator fire. Karen, of course, didn't take it lying down. Her new legal team, 3 suits from a mid-tier Vegas firm, showed up to the first hearing with smug grins and folders full of community service photos and supposed evidence of neighborhood improvement under her leadership. But when the judge saw the video of Preston Weller torching my shed, then saw the HOA's own internal minutes where Karen explicitly discussed framing me, he ordered a preliminary injunction against all HOA enforcement activities. Just like that, Karen's entire regime was frozen. The press caught wind of it the next day. A local affiliate ran the headline: "Veteran landowner takes down rogue HOA, sabotage, arson, and hidden cameras." It exploded from there. Within 48 hours, the story hit national news. HOA abuse was a hot-button issue, and I had receipts. Karen tried to spin it. She claimed I edited the footage. She claimed Preston and Coulter acted alone. She claimed I had a vendetta. But each time we dropped more evidence: emails, call logs, time-stamped notices. The court watched her world unravel document by document. And then came the bombshell. Madison, my unexpected ally, had quietly been gathering financial records. She used to be on the HOA Treasury Committee, and she still had access to backups. She handed us a flash drive labeled Kitchen Fund, joking bitterly that it was where Karen claimed their budget overages went. It turned out the HOA had spent nearly $20,000 on entertainment for HOA board members in the past 2 years. Luxury dinners, spa weekends, private security, all billed under maintenance. Worse, some of the funds came from checks coerced from homeowners under threat of lien. That was enough for the DA. They opened a criminal investigation into HOA financial fraud and document forgery. Karen was formally indicted on 8 felony charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, and accessory to arson. She was arrested at her own HOA meeting, ironically during a PowerPoint presentation about community values. The trial was set 6 months out. In the meantime, Red Hills Preserve HOA was suspended by court order, and a state-appointed administrator began reviewing all its past actions. Half the neighborhood celebrated. The other half looked like someone had pulled the batteries out of their Stepford hearts. As for me, I wasn't done yet, because when someone builds a false empire in your backyard, you don't just knock down the gate, you salt the earth. The courtroom was packed. 6 months of silence, paperwork, interviews, depositions, and cold Nevada nights had all led to this day. I sat near the front, suit pressed, boots polished, jaw locked. Karen entered through the side door with her attorney, and a face so tight with disdain, it looked like she was trying to chew through her own rage. She didn't glance at me. She glanced at the camera crews. The trial lasted 9 days. 9 long, brutal, surgically dismantling days. The prosecution came prepared. Exhibit after exhibit laid out Karen's empire for what it was. A house of cards built on fear, deception, and paperwork no court ever validated. Residents testified, some tearfully, others furiously. I watched men in their 60s recall being threatened with arrest. I watched a single mother describe the HOA's violation fines that nearly cost her home because she put up a basketball hoop for her son. And I testified too. I told the jury how Karen's husband, an elected officer of the law, had entered my property without cause, shoved me, and called me a threat for refusing to bow to their neighborhood cult. I showed them the footage from the generator fire. I detailed the faked video of my assault on an HOA inspector. The defense kept trying to object. They said it was all coincidence, all inferred hostility. The judge wasn't buying it. The jury wasn't either. On the 6th day, Preston Weller took a deal. He pled guilty and testified that Karen directly ordered the firebombing. Coulter followed 2 days later. He had no spine for jail. His plea deal reduced his sentence, but his testimony sealed hers. The jury came back in 4 hours. Guilty. Karen was convicted on 7 of the 8 felony charges, including racketeering, conspiracy to commit arson, fraud, and abuse of authority under color of law. She stood there, still refusing to look at me, as the judge read the sentence. 17 years in state prison, without the possibility of early release. Not a gasp in the room, just silence. A heavy, righteous silence. Afterward, I stepped outside into the sun. News crews circled, microphones in hand, but I walked right past them. No interest, no statements. I wasn't here for headlines. I was here for peace. The HOA was formally dissolved 2 weeks later by state order. All assets frozen, all pending fines and liens declared null and void. The land they operated on was released back to the homeowners, many of whom tore down the ridiculous uniform fences and opened their lots for the first time in years. I used my court-awarded compensation to rebuild the generator shed, triple the security infrastructure, and install a perimeter surveillance system so advanced it'd make a federal facility blush. But that wasn't all. I broke ground on a new building, a small training facility and classroom, a place for landowners like me to learn their rights, understand their deeds, and fight back against illegal HOA tactics. I called it the Boundary School. The first cohort was full before the roof even went up. The locals had started calling me the man who broke the HOA. I didn't care for titles, but that one I could live with. And Karen, she tried to appeal. She lost. They moved her to a medium security prison upstate. Ironically, it had an inmate-run residence council, a kind of HOA. I hear she doesn't attend.